Thanks, Kirk. Good morning, guys. It's been a while, and obviously we've endured some difficult situations through the last couple of months, which has made us have to address what we do and how we do it a little bit different. I think the biggest thing that was probably that in all this is, Dr. Goodlett and Robbie in the training room and their staff in terms of them taking care of us as a staff, taking care of our players, and creating an environment where we could get done what we needed to get to has been phenomenal. And the appreciation of those guys is there's just not enough words because they're not only protecting us, our players, but they're protecting all of our families. And so we appreciate that. Sorry we can't be together, but it is the way we go about things now. I think in terms of from the football part of it, it's it's been a day-to-day adjustment all the way back from last March when they canceled spring practice to the Zoom meetings that we had, extensive Zoom meetings. That was uniquely different, to say the least. Then fast forward to now, even today, we still are not all in one room when we meet. It's by Zoom, and so there's a lot of challenges, but our guys have responded phenomenal. Their attitude has been great. They have been resilient. Then we start the football practice, and the thing that you can't do on Zoom is you guys know the three things that we start every day at practice with is we're going to play with relentless effort, we're going to be physically, mentally tough, and we're going to tackle. Well, we looked, we studied, but we couldn't find a way to get that done on Zoom. So it's been a fast process over the last 13 days of trying to get our young guys to understand we're going to ask you to do hard things, and you're going to have to make the right choices in that, and it's on fast forward. They've been very good, had a good attitude about it, and we're pleased with the attitude, the work ethic, the resiliency, the ability to adjust and stay focused in that adjustment. Our guys have been really, really good about that. So, Kirk, if you want to open up for questions, we'll take the questions.
All right, Coach, your first question is from Brian Matthews.
Yes, Coach Steele, thank you for speaking to us today. Just wanted to ask you about the secondary and just overall, how do you feel about it, replacing 4 or 5 starters, and especially at the cornerback position? Who do you see stepping up there?
Well, I think, in terms of replacing starters, we've always addressed that issue, and you've heard us say this before. In this league, we've never approached it where we've got 11 starters. We've always tried to get into the neighborhood of 18 starters that we could play in any game at any point in time, and we did that. An example of that would be that some people would say, well, Roger McCreary wasn't a starter. But you go back and look at his snaps uh, in games, you look at his production, you look at the times in which he played. He's a starter. He was a starter last year. And so we've got several guys like that. And so in college football, we're used to the fact that guys graduate. And so that has not been an issue really for us. In terms of the secondary, I think the thing that probably jumps out, you asked specifically about corners, but looking at it in its totality, we had Tut back at the star position, and I'll just go ahead and cover the whole secondary for you and end it with the corner question. And then Puckett he's lost some weight. He's back healthy. He was not healthy at all last year he's still recovering from the injury that he had, and you could tell it. He's back very fluid and playing very well. And then Tennyson, a young guy, has all the athletic ability to play the position. Obviously, he's in his 13th day. There's still a learning curve, but you can see that we're in a position with this season and what we're dealing with that we have to have every guy ready to play. And so we're still in the process, but he is on track. The safety position, of course, was Smoke and Sherwood back. Those guys played a lot of football They're considered starters to us, where last year, even though Daniel and Dennison would play the first play sometime, their pitch count in the games was as high as the other twos. And then we've taken Jordan Peters and moved him from star to safety because Tennyson, and so we've got a 3-man rotation going on there. And of course, we still have Askew is grown up and understands what we're doing, and then Chris Thompson is a young guy that really has a good skill set. As far as the corner position, we've kind of got a fun battle going on. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's factual, and that with Pritchard, Damio, and this is not in any order: Pritchard, Damio, Devin Barrett, Matthew Hill, and then Simpson, Jalen Simpson. Those guys are battling, and if you ask me today, I couldn't tell you who would be the starter of that group. I mean, that's how competitive it is. And so with that, we've actually gone from having a situation where, okay, who's going to be the starter and can we find some backups, to we've got a good competition between 5 guys going on there, not counting Roger. And the guys are playing at a high level, and they've all worked with the ones. It's been kind of fun to watch because they all embrace the challenge like you should. They've played with relentless effort. They've shown mental toughness. They've shown physical toughness, and they're good tacklers, which is where we start with everything. And then if we can get that, we'll have a chance. We've been very productive in terms of keeping the top on the coverage with those guys in practice, and that we've gone from being a question mark to we actually are in a situation. Obviously, we hadn't played a game, and game is different, but we feel like that we've got the right guys in the seats.
And as a quick follow-up, Coach Steele, have you ever had a position where you've had 5 guys who have a legitimate chance for winning a starting job all competing against each other? That seems like a lot.
Yeah, in the D-line. It's happened before. In the secondary, for 2 spots, 5 guys, really 6 guys. It's probably a little bit, and it was probably created, as you well know. Sometimes as coaches, we'll go out there and this guy's back, so he's the guy, so you don't create the competition as much as maybe you should. That's on us. We had a situation where we had to create, and so in creating it, they all responded, which is, a good thing.
Next question, Coach, is from J.G. Tate.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking some time to do this with us. With Connis being gone, it changes the dynamic a little bit inside up front. Talk about Marquise and Dre, 2 guys we haven't had a chance to see, and maybe how Jay Hardy fits into the depth there.
Yeah, well, you've got Burks and Butler, which are junior college guys, so they're a little bit older. But then you got Zacchaeus Walker, who can play outside and inside, and you got Hardy, Jay, of the young guys, coupled with Truesdale and Newkirk. We have been very impressed with the maturity of those guys. They're all powerful. The athletic ability is not a question. It's there, and they have the right coach coaching them to get them ready in a short period of time. They just got a gift for developing D-line, and they've responded to that. So at this point in time, experience and just seeing it is probably the biggest question. The effort, the athletic ability, the work, the workload is not too much for them. There'll be probably some growing pains, and it'll be a little bit by committee, but it will not be a talent deficient group at all.
Coach, our next question is from Jason Caldwell.
Kevin, thank you for sitting in with us a little bit. To build on your question about, your answer about kind of the depth and playing so many players last year, how valuable is first having so many guys back that have played, but also being in the same system without having spring practice to not have to teach new things. How valuable has that been during this time?
Well, I think you'd probably be best off to ask the players that, which I'm sure you have at some point in time in a roundabout way. But it's pretty obvious when you go out there and you put our first group out there, and you've got Smoke and Sherwood and KJ Britt and McLean and that Owen Popo, those guys, which they're the ones that have a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going out there formation-wise, motion-wise, shifts-wise, which will get people. You can't play if you don't get your cleats in the ground and know what you're doing. And we have not had that as an issue. I think it's coupled by two things, or three things. We have really, really smart guys. They're just smart guys. The other thing is that they've been in this system for a long time. They've had a lot of snaps with the same verbiage, the same terminology, and they understand the system. And then the other thing now, if you total up the hours that we've been on Zoom, it's been a lot of hours. So, you can't teach tackling, you can't teach relentless effort and mental toughness, physical toughness on Zoom, but you can teach the scheme. And I'm not sure, but I think we went through installation about 7 times since April. There's a lot of Zoom hours.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Coach, our next question is from Mark Murphy.
Kevin, talk about working with Chad Morris again, how you guys work together at Clemson and how important it is for you guys to have a good relationship in preseason practice, getting ready to play a game.
Well, like you said, Chad is a friend of mine. We've worked together before. We've stayed in contact. When you've worked with someone before, you kind of understand what they need, and then he understands what I need. And so it's pretty easy when we come together on the practice schedule to make sure that we're helping each other get what we need to see. Because, other than that, then it's line up and let's see who wins the down.
Thanks.
Coach, our next question is from Bill Cameron.
Coach, you talked about the interior guys on the line. What about the ends, the buck and the strong side end? You've got quite a few guys battling there. And have you found anybody who's really giving you some explosion from the edge?
Well, obviously TD Moultrie has done that in the past. There's been flashes of it. Derek Hall played a lot of football last year. Both of those guys kind of have a battle going on. And then we've got two, Romello Height is still injured a little bit. And then Johnson is a guy that has a knack. He had a knack in high school. He hasn't played much here yet, but he's still young. And then at the defensive end, of course, Big Cat Bryant. Kobe Wooden is a guy that you would have to say, not the star, but you would have to say that he is one of the guys that is just taken a big jump from last year to this year. He's playing really well, very mature. His strength level, Russell in the weight room has got him stronger. And then, of course, we got Handy, who is, he's a full-grown man at the defensive end spot that can actually do like Marlon did and bump inside and play too, so we can get snaps. We've got several guys that can do that, but he's one of them. And then Daniel Foster Allen is a young guy with talent.
Next question is from Tom Green.
Hey, Kevin. At linebacker, I know you guys like to rotate 4 guys usually, but with 2 guys opting out, including Chandler, who's really stepped up among those younger guys?
Yeah, Cam Riley and Wesley Steiner are the 2 guys. And I think that Tisdale would have been, but obviously, guys, it's kind of the elephant in the room. We go out there any given day and have in the last 13 days where with the close contact and the testing and all that stuff, it's been kind of intriguing to, okay, you got a guy out, now you got to get reps to another guy. It's been forced a little bit. We're used to that by injury. We're not used to that by the testing cycle that we're dealing with. But it's been, I wouldn't say frustrating because we expected it. We kind of knew it was going to happen, so we took a positive attitude about it. but the positive thing that's come out of it is there's been days in which we had to get experience with a younger guy, and he had to go. And even with the ones, occasionally you've looked out there and had a freshman that had not earned that, but because of the situation, injuries, and then the testing cycles, that they had to go. And so that's helped speed up some of the process for those younger guys.
Next question is from Christian Clemente.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for talking to us today. I was just curious what you've seen out of Nick Curtis so far in fall camp since he transferred from Kent State, and whether or not he'll be able to play this fall.
Well, we're still deciding who will be able to play and who not, but he's an athletic guy. He's very, very smart. Played at Hoover High School, which is that's in some ways people will tell you that it's got some properties like a college. They play football at a high level. They're well coached. They go about it in a collegiate type way. So his adjustment has not been bad. He's still trying to add weight for the position because he's a long, thin guy, but he's got ability.
Our next question is from Josh Vitale.
I wanted to ask, what did you see out of Roger McCreary when you were recruiting him from Williamson, and how has he grown into this, I guess, top corner role for your defense?
Yeah, when we were recruiting Roger, what we saw was a guy who never came off the field, literally. He punted, he kicked off, he returned punts, he returned kickoffs. He played defensive back, he played quarterback, he played wide receiver. He never came off the field. And so the athleticism was pretty obvious in the development of skill, because he developed a lot of different skills for that way. But the big thing is he's extremely competitive and he can run real fast. And that's pretty crucial at corner.
Coach, our next question is from Gianna Hahn.
Hi, Coach. Thank you for talking to us today. How have you seen Daquan Newkirk overcome his struggles, and what do you expect out of him this season?
When you say your struggles, you're talking about the Achilles surgeries, and well, obviously he's a very, very athletic, big man. And when I say big, he's big, but extremely athletic, and he can run very fast, very fluid, bends very well. His deal was he just needed to play the position. You're talking about a guy that played running back in high school. So he had to develop as an inside defensive lineman. That is a process. It's a rare position, because when you line up in there, you got 300 pounds on your right ear and 300 pounds on your left ear, and they have bad intentions to maul you. And so you got to develop a mental and physical toughness that is different than playing a skill position. It just is, because it's a full workload every snap. That takes time, and he missed a lot of time with it. But because of his athleticism, his work ethic, his attitude, he's developed into a very good football player.
Next question is from Nathan King.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, thanks for talking with us today. I wanted to ask what you've seen out of Al Pogue this preseason. We've seen videos of him being energetic. Gus has talked about his energy. And how valuable is it to have a guy like that has coached a lot of different positions in the past?
Well, as a staff, it's just an energetic staff anyway. And of course, that defensive room that he's in, the original four that we started with 5 years ago are still in that room. And so when you come in as a new guy, sometimes with that in itself, you could just sit back and just kind of, not say very much. Well, Al is very energetic. He was a guy that he dove right in, and so he embraced his assignment, his job, and brings a lot of energy. The thing I probably appreciate the most about Al is he's the same every day. He comes to work with the same attitude, upbeat, positive every single day.
Our next question is from Steve Moulton.
Hey, Coach. Appreciate you doing this. With the lack of spring, I'm wondering philosophically, has it changed what you do from a tackling standpoint? How much of that has changed in terms of getting guys thud in practice, that kind of scenario?
Yeah. Uh, the thing that probably we had a very productive first scrimmage, but the number one thing that we felt like we had to make a huge improvement on, not that it was not, I'm not saying it was awful. I'm not saying it was bad. I'm just saying it was not to our standard. It was not what we usually do from an Auburn defensive standpoint. And so we scrimmaged pretty early in that thing. It was first day in pads that we scrimmaged. So we were going to make the emphasis anyway, but I think the fact that we had video evidence of it to show the guys and the sense of urgency that we needed to fast forward this thing is that we've worked really hard on tackling. Now our older guys, they've been through it. It's kind of like a golf swing. Once you got a good golf swing and hit a golf ball, you kind of got it. It doesn't take much to pick up the club and go do it. And so that's the case for Jamie Sherwood. But for the young guys, the development of that, it takes some time. So we've had to fast forward it, keep it on fast forward pretty much every day. Now we're not tackling to the ground, but you can still get balanced body control, pulling the trigger, the good eyes, head up, those kind of things. You can get that done from a thud mentality.
Do you feel good about the overall depth? Because we've heard Coach Malzahn speak about being 3 deep at certain positions.
Oh, well, we do. We feel good about that. And again, we've had a moving depth chart every day. And that could be looked at as a negative, but it's going to happen all season long. That's just the way it's going to be. So it's forced us to make sure that we're developing everybody, not just the first two and a half groups. You always develop, but you had time on your side with some of that development. We don't have time on our side now. You could wind up having to play a third team guy in a SEC football game quick.
Our next question is from Philip Marshall.
Good morning, Kevin. I had to look and see if it was still morning. If you could, we've heard a lot of talk about Sherwood and his potential for even playing beyond Auburn. Just talk about what it is that he brings that's unique to the position.
Well, obviously, you guys know, speaking of Smoke and Sherwood, if you go back to the Washington game 2 years ago, both of those guys played in that game, first game of their career at Auburn as a true freshman. We knew in those fall camp that we had 2 very, very good football players that were really smart. They're good tacklers. They can cover. They can get people lined up and quarterback. Jamie may be one of the best tacklers I've ever seen in the secondary. He's that talented with his balance and body control and just really, really good tackler. He's always had good coverage skills. Probably the biggest jump that Jamie's made this year is that he's a quiet person by nature. He's just really a quiet person. And he is more talkative and more assertive on the field. Jamie Sherwood, you asked specifically about him, and if he stays healthy and keeps the mindset that he has, he can be very, very special.
Thank you, sir.
Our next question is from Thomas Murphy.
Hey, Coach. Last season, the defense forced 2 defensive touchdowns, both coming late in the season against Alabama. And with a league that has several first-year quarterbacks with LSU, Georgia, and Alabama to an extent, do you feel like the defense is going to force more turnovers and points off those with the experience they had this season?
Well, we play every play to to get the ball back. That's the whole purpose of playing defense, and there's several ways you can get it back. 3 and out is basically a turnover in itself. We treat that as a turnover. Obviously, fumble recoveries and our interceptions are the ones that you focus on, but 3 and outs are pretty key too, because that creates punch situation, field position change like a turnover does. As a defensive coach, I take 2 turnovers for touchdowns every game, but every play's got a life of its own. So, we work for that, but to say that it's going to happen, we got to play the game and find out.
Coach, we got a follow-up from JG Tate.
Yeah, Kevin, a question about the way you structure your roster on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, that's what you do. Every coach in America wants to have 4 deep, 5 deep at every position. But you, during your time at Auburn, you've been able to stack up players like that. A lot of coaches can't. Why have you guys been successful in just creating those levels of depth in your system?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, first of all, Coach gives us a big voice in the recruiting process in our defensive room. In terms of, now he obviously makes the final decision on who we're taking and who we're not, but our guys are really good, Rodney, Travis, Wesley, and now Al, but the first 3 that have been together a long time, we understand what we want. That's part of you talk about the system being the same for the players. Well, it's the same for the coaches too. So everybody understanding what a star looks like in our system. So when they go on the road, everybody has okay, Josh Hosley, Rudy Ford, the guys that have played star for us, okay, this is what we're looking for. And so once everybody understands what we're looking for, it's important for Travis to know when he goes on the road recruiting, what does Rodney Gardner expect in a 3 technique? What does it look like? Well, we've had some pretty good examples. In fact, we had a great example last year. You've got a vision of that. So I think that's helped us in that we're all on the same page of what each position criteria looks like and what the expectation is for that position. That's helped us tremendously. And we have not been afraid to go find those guys. Now, obviously, there's certain players out there that everybody in the country knows, hey, this guy can play at a high level. But there's also guys that are in small town USA that may not be on the radar that can play SEC football. There's been a lot of guys that that didn't have the recruiting ranking that have that went on and played in the National Football League, and so trying to find those guys and just meeting the criteria of each position. We have a criteria for each position, and we do not vary from that. That helps us feed the system.
We got time for a few more. Next one is from Jason Caldwell.
Kevin, you mentioned a little bit about Colby Wooden kind of being one of those guys that's jumped out. What does he bring to the table, and is he one of those guys? I know you like guys that are able to maybe move around. Is he a guy that you can move around and play different spots in the defensive line?
Yeah, I think the thing that jumps out, he loves football. And when you get a guy that loves football, they love to practice, and now we try to make it sometimes where practice is not lovable. You got to ask people to do hard things. You got to push them but he really works hard. It's important to him. He's a smart guy. He's worked hard in the weight room. He's done all the little things, and that he's very, very competitive. Very competitive. He realizes every play has a life of its own. Every drill that he does, there's a winner and loser in this. It's just the way it is. It's the business we're in. And so when you line up in one-on-one, an individual drill on practice 13 against an offensive lineman, it's not just a drill. There is a winner and there is a loser. You either get your job done or he gets his done. He is the kind of guy that will fight you he drops. He goes about every drill, every play to try to be the best he can be.
Primary position, strong side end for him.
Well, he's one of those guys that can do both now. He's filled out. He's stronger, a lot stronger. He's getting to where that he has some ability to do some inside work too.
I got you. Thank you.
Coach, can you talk about how Tyrone Truesdale's improved since his freshman year, and also pass rush? Who you're going to be counting on this year for that?
Well, we're still in the process on the pass rush in terms of finding out what this team is. At this point in time, 2 years ago, in fact, we talked about this morning. At this point in time, going into the season, I guess it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were still trying to figure out, okay, are we going to have to be a pressure team to generate pass rush? Are we going to be able to generate it with a four-man rush? Who's going to be the speed rusher? Who's the inside guys to get on the field for the pass rush? And Jeff Holland was not the guy we picked that we thought was going to be that guy. And obviously he was. So we're still a little bit in the process of that in terms of the pass rush part of the question. Truesdale, I mean, the development of what Rodney has done with Tyrone in terms of his development, he is a rock-solid football player that can line up inside where it's hard to do and hold the point, command double teams, keep people off the linebackers. He understands the defense. He does not make mental errors. And to say, well, how far has he come? Well, I mean, the third day of practice when he was a freshman, he couldn't even do up downs. And so that's how far he's come.
He looks like he's probably one of your physically stronger guys. Is that the case?
Well, yeah, he's always been pretty strong now, but he is a strong, powerful man.
Thanks.
Coach, our last question today comes from Tom Green.
Hey, Kevin. Big Cat and Tyrone both said that Jay Hardy kind of reminds them of a young Derek Brown. What do you think of that comparison, or what really breeds that comparison from them?
I think football is important to him. It was to Derek. He's a guy that, Derek, when he was young, whatever Rodney said, he did. The hard things too. And Jay does that. He has that athleticism, that quickness, and that natural power. And I think that's probably where they draw the comparison. He's got a little bit of the same body type. If you see him, he's got a little bit of, he looks the same.
All right, Coach Steele, we appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.